Hi everyone, for today's lesson we are going to learn how to measure and classify angles. This is the first day that we are going to be practicing this idea. Once again, our learning targets is for you to be able to classify, name, identify, and define, as well as draw an angle based on its measure, as well as when an angle is bisected. Our content objective is for you to be able to say, I can identify and name angles when they share a common vertex. The first thing we are going to do in example number 1 is we are going to name the 3 angles in the diagram. And there does exist 3 angles in this picture. I recommend strongly that for this lesson, you have some colors to help you identify different pieces. And it helps a lot with your being able to visualize whatever it is that we are talking about. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to identify the very big angle. And I'm going to underline this in orange. Every single angle has 2 names. In this case, our first name is going to be angle A, B, and D. And we always put an angle symbol in front. And this is angle A, B, D. The angle symbol goes in front. I have my 1 point on my ray. The vertex, this is called a vertex, the corner point. The vertex is always in the middle. And then we have a point on the other side. This is one way to name this angle. Another way to name this angle is to go backwards and call it angle D, B, A. So that is a way to name. Naming is different than classifying. Naming is actually calling it what it is. We typically use letters or numbers whenever we name. The next angle that we have is this angle right here. It is formed with A, B, and C. And so that is one of its names, angle A, B, C. Another way to name this angle is to go backwards, C, B, A. So angle C, B, A. Once again, B is in the center because that is the corner point. That is the vertex, and the vertex always goes into the center. The third angle that we have is this other little angle, and that is CBD. CBD is one way to name that angle, angle CBD. CBD. But another way to name that angle is to go backwards, angle DBC. Notice that I did not call this angle B, and you should not call it angle B. And the reason why you should not name this angle B is because they all have a common or shared vertex. Now, if angle B only represented one angle, angle B would be a great answer. But angle B represents many angles. And so because it represents many angles, we cannot use it as a name. Because whenever we name an angle, it should only represent one angle at a time, not many. So therefore, angle B would not be a good name. But when we were doing our discussion notes, I'm going to go ahead and pull those out. Hopefully you completed this before watching this video. When you look at our discussion notes, we named the angle in our discussion notes angle B, and that was because angle B only represented one angle. So that is a good name for it. Unfortunately, if you have multiple angles, like in this picture right here, we could never call this angle F. And the reason why we could not call it angle F is because angle F represents 3 separate angles. And you cannot use a name of an angle that represents more than one angle. So it has to only be like on its own. Please, please, please be very careful with this. This tends to be a misconception that a lot of students struggle with. So if angle B represents many angles, then that means you should not use angle B as an answer. Please do not do it because it represents many different angles. So one way that you can measure angles is with a protractor. And some of you might have a protractor at home. Some of you might not. That's okay. Just do the very best that you can, especially when analyzing these types of pictures. This type of problem is a question very similar to ones that you may see on a quiz, test, or a midterm. And it says use the diagram to find the measure. So we want the actual measure of the indicated angle. And then we're going to classify the angle. So classify, remember, that is to put it into a category. And there are 4 different categories. They are acute angles, right angles, obtuse angles, and straight. So there are 4 different names: acute, right, obtuse, and straight. Whenever you're working with a protractor, what you want to do is you always want to start at the very bottom and then work your way around. There exist numbers that go from 0 to 180 on the outside and from 0 going all the way to 180 on the inside. So whenever you're trying to figure out where this angle or how big the angle is, I would recommend starting at the bottom and then working your way around. So let's go ahead and start with WSR. So here is WSR. Remember, we start at the bottom and work our way around. So I'm starting right here at 0. And because this angle appears to be a small angle, that tells me that I am going to start right here on the outside of 0 degrees and work my way around. So 0 all the way to 60. And this is in between 60 and 70. So this angle appears to be, WSR appears to be about 65 degrees. 65 degrees. Next, we have angle TSW. So let's go ahead and look at TSW. Notice that TSW is on the other side and it appears to be a little bit bigger. So we always start at the bottom. Now, should we start with 180 degrees or should we start at 0? Probably 0. So always start at 0. So sometimes 0 is on the inside, sometimes 0 is on the outside. It just depends, but we always start at 0. So starting at 0, I'm going all the way around, and it looks like this is 110, 120, but we land right in between 110 and 120 degrees, and that is 115 degrees. We always need to have our degree symbols whenever we are talking about a measure. So in this problem, the answer is 115 degrees. The next one is RST. So let's go ahead and look at RST. So R going over to S, going all the way over to T. This is a flat line. And so because it is a flat line, we know that this is a straight angle, and that is 180 degrees. Uh-oh, I forgot. We need to classify as well. So 65 degrees is less than 90, so we will call that an acute angle. Acute angles are so cute. 115 degrees is bigger than 90 degrees, but not as big as 180, so we call that an obtuse angle. 180 degrees, well, that is a straight line, so we call that a straight angle. And finally, we have angle VST. T. So angle VST. Here we go. Here's V going down to S, going all the way over to T. And once again, we always start at 0. So I'm going to start at 0 and work my way around. And right there, it's at 90 degrees. And a 90-degree angle is a right angle. So that is finding the measure and classifying it. So when you see that language of classify, classify means to give it a category. What category does it fall into? All right, example number 3 says, look at the diagram and name all of the angles. So this is very similar to what we did up here in example number 1. I am not looking for many names. I am just looking for a given name for all of the angles in this diagram. And in this diagram, there exists 3 angles. So I'm going to write a line and the word or and a line, the word or, and another line, the line and the word or, and another line. Now, when it comes to naming all of the angles, you only have to give one name. For each angle. But I want to make sure that I emphasize that each angle has 2 names. So the first angle that I'm going to work with is this angle right here, FG to J. FGA, and we're going to call it angle FGJ. Or, going backwards, angle JGF. The next angle that we have is right here, angle JGH. So I'm going to call it angle JGH. Notice that that G is always in the middle, and that's because it's the vertex. We can also go backwards and call this angle HGJ. And finally, we have one more angle, and that is the big angle on the outside. And there exists this big angle on the outside, and that big angle is angle FGH or angle HGF. Notice that we did not use angle angle G at all. So we do not use angle G as a name in this picture. And we do not use it as a name in this picture because angle G represents many different angles. So this is the word A. Example number 4 says, what type of angles do the x-axis and y-axis form in a coordinate plane? All right, let's go ahead and draw a coordinate plane. Here is the y-axis, and here is the x-axis. What kind of angles do you see? Well, each of the axes individually are straight angles. So we could say that the x-axis is a straight angle, and the y-axis is also a straight angle because they are lines. But what do they form? Well, they form, when they intersect with each other, right angles. So the axes intersect. To form right angles. And that is the end of today's lesson. If you have any questions over anything, please make sure that you email me. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day.